It is difficult to overestimate the impact that FPV drones have had on the battlefield. In the context of this conflict, they are undergoing a development path similar to that once followed by manned aviation. Here's the thing. Initially, enthusiasts constructed and assembled FPVs, as well as various types of early aircraft, on their own. Then, design bureaus and companies started getting involved, followed by orders from the state. Much like manned aviation, drones have developed their own classification, though not yet universally accepted. Kamikaze drones, UAV interceptors, bombers, reconnaissance drones, and transport drones that, for example, carry other FPVs. Once, there were no real means of combating aviation. Over time, anti-aircraft guns, machine guns, the early air defense systems, etc. started to appear. This marked the beginning of an active, hyperbolic development process for both aviation itself and the means to counter it. Now, we are witnessing the same thing that happened from a century ago up to today, but now the word aviation can be replaced with drones. And it seems that this is just the beginning. Analog cameras are being replaced by digital ones. Night drones are appearing, range is increasing, and control methods and communication channels with operators are evolving. Every new successful solution is literally revolutionizing the battlefield. I don't know if anyone can accurately predict what will happen next, but I do know that eventually there will be a point in development here too, where further technological growth on the X scale will no longer have such a decisive impact on effectiveness on the Y scale. Today, however, we are at a point where the rules of the game have once again been rewritten by Fiber-optic's FPV drones. We'll discuss what exactly is this technology, how does it work, what are its pros and cons, and how far has progress advanced for each side, as well as examine some episodes of its practical application on the battlefield. Fortunately, there are already plenty of footage online. It will be interesting. Enjoy watching the video. A bit of background. For those unaware, why exactly drones are posing such a significant threat? The reason lies in their unique combination of capabilities, the destructive power of anti-tank munitions, the range of mortars, and the precision of sniper fire. It all began in the spring of 2022. At that time, Ukrainian grenade launcher operators and anti-tank guided missile (ATGM) teams could freely position themselves on the rooftops of high-rise buildings, often remaining undetected. Later, during the assault on Mariupol, Russian armed forces RAF adapted by deploying quadcopters to scout rooftops in advance, identifying ambushes and engaging them with airstrikes, or targeting them with tanks and artillery. By the fall of 2022, both sides had recognized the potential of quadcopters and began equipping them with small bombs or grenades, which could be dropped directly onto targets. Then, in early 2023, FPV drones used by the Ukrainian Armed Forces, UAF, became a serious threat to Russian armored vehicles. These drones are piloted through specialized goggles that provide a first-person view FPV from the drone's perspective. This development was a true battlefield revolution, as there was no clear countermeasure for a highly maneuverable, small target that could approach undetected from an optimal trajectory and strike vehicles at their most vulnerable points. Essentially, FPV drones functioned as a highly advanced long-range version of anti-tank guided missiles. The first major battlefield where these kamikaze drones were widely deployed was Bakhmut. Since the entire engagement is recorded by the operator and often shared online, the psychological impact is significant. This footage is heavily utilized for propaganda, boosting morale, intimidating the enemy, and encouraging public donations for new equipment. Despite certain drawbacks, such as dependency on weather conditions and the inability to execute instantaneous attacks, the mass adoption of drones fundamentally altered the course of the war. They became instrumental in halting advancing mechanized columns, striking soldiers hiding in trenches and fortified positions, and hunting down enemy vehicles and artillery in rear positions. As a result, drone operators took over roles traditionally performed by anti-tank guided missile ATGMs, crews, artillery, machine gunners, and even snipers, since drones were increasingly used to target individual soldiers. Eventually, countermeasures were developed against FPV drones, primarily through electronic warfare (EW) systems designed to disrupt the connection between the drone and its operator. However, the ongoing cat-and-mouse game of jamming and frequency shifting appears to have reached a turning point, with a victory for drones utilizing optical communication. Unlike conventional FPV drones that rely on radio signals, these drones are tethered to the operator via a thin fiber-optic cable, which can only be severed through direct mechanical means. This setup ensures a fully secure, high-quality connection with exceptional data transmission rates, similar to the fiber optic cables widely used in the internet industry. Some developers began experimenting with fiber optic communication as early as late 2022 and early 2023, but at the time, the concept didn't gain much traction. Radio communication was still functioning effectively. However, as electronic jamming systems became widespread across the front, interest in fiber optic solutions resurfaced. The fundamental principle behind fiber optics is that it consists of an ultra-thin glass fiber cable that transmits a beam of light with encoded information. The idea of using light waves for communication dates back 170 years to Victorian England. British physicist John Tyndall conducted an experiment in which he guided light along a stream of falling water, demonstrating how light could be directed along a curved path. However, practical applications for these principles only emerged in the 1930s. In 1934, American engineer Norman French was granted a patent for an optical telephone system in which speech signals were transmitted via light-through rods made of pure glass. 20 years later, an American company introduced the term fiber optics. Another 2 decades after that, in 1973, the company Rediffusion developed the first commercial fiber optic system for transmitting analog television signals. This marked the beginning of the widespread commercial adoption of fiber optic communication systems, which were quickly adapted for military applications. That same year, in 1973, the U.S. Navy implemented the first fiber optic communication line aboard the USS Little Rock. The Soviet Union followed suit, introducing fiber optic communication lines at select sites in the late 1980s. Israel took the technology a step further by integrating it into the Spike anti-tank guided missile system, allowing for real-time flight corrections. The fiber optic spool, approximately 5 kilometers in length, unwinds at the same speed as the missile in flight. A later German upgrade of this system was introduced under the name MELS. Additionally, open-source reports suggest that the North Korean self-propelled ATGM Bullseye 4, which also utilizes fiber optic missile guidance, has been deployed in the SMO zone. The operating principle is relatively straightforward. An electrical signal from one device is converted into light via a specialized converter, transmitted through the fiber optic cable, and then reconverted into an electrical signal at the receiving end. The light source is typically a semiconductor microlaser or an LED, with data encoding achieved by modulating light intensity. While the transmission speed is slightly lower than the speed of light due to factors such as laser power limitations and beam refraction, it remains significantly faster than other communication methods. Now, take a look at this image. A woman examining an ultra-thin fiber optic cable showcased at a 2023 technology exhibition in Shanghai. Unsurprisingly, China is the global leader in fiber optic production. Just a year later, this same technology has already found its way onto the battlefield. Advantages and disadvantages of fiber optic FPV drones. Adapting fiber optic technology for drones is remarkably simple. A standard FPV drone is equipped with a lightweight spool of fiber optic cable. However, the cable does not provide power. The drone still relies on batteries. Instead, it serves exclusively for control and high-quality video transmission. The key reason why military forces have embraced this technology is that it does not emit radio signals, meaning it cannot be detected or jammed by electronic warfare systems. A fiber optic connection cannot be hacked or disrupted remotely. The only way to counter it is through physical intervention, either by destroying the drone or cutting the cable. Also, if the cable becomes damaged or severed during flight, the connection is lost. Beyond its immunity to electronic interference, fiber optic drone technology offers several other advantages. The drone can fly extremely low and even enter buildings, and the operator doesn't need to learn how to navigate around EW zones. More importantly, it completely bypasses the issue of radio horizon limitations. There's no need to pore over elevation maps to figure out where to place relay stations or antennas for maximum coverage and a stable signal. Otherwise, an experienced enemy can methodically narrow down and pinpoint the drone operator's position. With fiber optic drones, radio horizon concerns are irrelevant. The operator can be positioned anywhere without worrying about maintaining a clear line of sight for radio waves. As a result, these drones do not need to maintain altitude until just before striking to preserve signal integrity. Instead, they can fly at extremely low altitudes throughout their mission, approaching the enemy from unexpected directions, while their target remains focused on scanning the skies for threats. Moreover, the cable provides a stable connection even in enclosed spaces where walls and other obstacles block radio signals. This allows drones to be used inside buildings or even underground without putting infantry at risk. In fact, such drones are now actively used to destroy enemy bunkers, as seen in various online videos, and this method has proven even more effective than the widely publicized FAB and KAB bombs of 2023 to 2024. Though those remain in service. Among other things, optics have rendered a significant amount of radio frequency-based equipment obsolete, including anti-drone rifles, EW backpacks, signal triangulation devices, and more. However, there are also downsides. As mentioned earlier, the weight of the spool slightly reduces flight time and payload capacity. Since it does not transmit power, the need for heavy batteries remains. Even so, an FPV drone can still penetrate up to 20 kilometers into enemy territory and remain airborne for about half an hour. Unlike traditional FPV drones, it cannot rely on signal relays to extend its operational range. Nevertheless, an optical drone can still fly over rough terrain, water obstacles, or buildings. The cable unwinds gradually as the drone moves, falling onto trees and the ground. As a Ukrainian soldier noted,
"In Pokrovsk or Kursk war zones, you just keep coming across this fiber optic cable everywhere. A couple more years of using these drones, and you'll literally be tripping over it."
Additionally, operators must plan maneuvers carefully to avoid breaking the fiber. For instance, when crossing roads, it is preferable to fly over trees so that the fiber remains suspended rather than lying on the ground, where it could be run over. Even so, the risk of cable breakage is very low. The cable cannot get caught on obstacles. Once it falls, it simply lies loose without tension. The spool itself minimizes the risk of disconnection, but the cable can still break if it is sharply bent or twisted into a knot. This is why pilots must avoid overly aggressive maneuvers such as sharp turns, sudden descents followed by rapid climbs, or flying in reverse. As a result, fiber-optic drones are slower and perform maneuvers more smoothly, giving their target more time to react. That said, fiber optics are not as fragile as they may seem at first glance. There is information suggesting that during testing, an FPV drone accidentally encountered a group of cyclists, and the operator misjudged the distance. The cable caught one of them, knocking him off his bike, but it did not snap. In short, as long as it isn't twisted, the tensile strength is enormous. However, even a slight twist can cause it to break easily. Potential threats include other UAVs capable of severing the cable, stray bullets, and shrapnel. To summarize, the downsides of fiber optics include a smaller warhead payload, reduced range, and lower maneuverability. The latter is influenced not only by control limitations, but also by less efficient aerodynamics and added weight. For example, a spool with a 10-kilometer range weighs approximately 1.2 kilograms, and a 15-kilometer spool weighs around 2 kilograms. A 25-centimeter FPV drone with a payload capacity of 3 to 4 kilograms can only carry a small munition weighing around 1.5 kilograms. However, this limitation is mitigated when larger drones with more powerful motors are used, a development already underway. That said, even 1.5 kilograms is significant, as it makes little difference to the intended target. In fact, the high signal quality and stability increase the likelihood of precisely striking a weak spot. Another drawback is the higher cost of fiber-optic drones. As of late 2023, a 10-kilometer spool cost around $3,000, almost 10 times the price of a standard small FPV drone. However, with increased production and market availability, prices have dropped significantly. Now, instead of $3,000, the cost is just a few $100. As a result, the total cost of a ready-to-use UAV is about $1,000, which is only slightly more expensive than a conventional FPV drone. Moreover, this price difference is more than compensated by the increased accuracy and the drastically lower rate of drone losses to enemy defenses. In short, the advantages far outweigh the drawbacks. Fiber optics can transmit signals without delay or quality loss over distances of several dozen kilometers. Naturally, this has had a significant impact on their combat effectiveness. But that's exactly where we'll start the next video. So you won't have to wait too long for new content and can digest all the info you've just received. Once part 2 is out, I'll add a link in the description and in the end screen. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Don't forget to drop a like. It's the best way to support my work. See you soon, my friends.